From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
When it's more than just your lawn, it deserves the Kubota Z400. When you need a head-turning offer on class-leading speed, agility, durability, simple deck height adjustments, and a professional-grade cut, then you need the Kubota Z400 mower. Right now, bring home select Kubota equipment for 0 down, 0% APR for up to 48 months or save $300.
Tractors, trailers, rentals.
You do it all, we do it local.
Well, happy Monday morning to you. It's August 5th. We're starting off with Kruger's Quickcast just to help get you out the door this morning so we can know what to expect here throughout the day today. Here's what we can expect here this morning. It's going to be a mild start to the day, especially in the valley with temperatures in the low 70s. Should be somewhere in the 60s for most of the higher elevations. Plenty of sunshine, minus of course, some of that haze and smoke that we will see out there. But I mean, the good news is as we go through this week, we're not going to see as much smoke as we've seen here throughout last week. Temperatures, they're beginning to warm back up again. We're back up to about 100 degrees for most of us in the valley today. Temperatures in the 90s, even some upper 80s in there for some of the higher elevations. And we've got those temperatures in the low to mid 60s for your daytime highs. That fog, it's having a hard time burning off through the afternoon. So looking at your 7-day outlook, yeah, it's pretty much status quo. Temperature is pretty typical for this time of the year. 100 degrees or higher in most cases for the valley for the next 7 days. We look at your 7-day forecast for the coast, inland, and for, of course, Trinity County. Temperatures fairly warm for the inland areas, not to mention hot in Trinity County. Of course, not so hot for the coast. Temperatures in the mid-60s for your daytime highs for the next 7 days. And for Siskiyou County, Modoc County, not to mention the eastern mountains, also those warmer temperatures, but it looks like we are seeing a bit of a downward trend here as we get closer to the weekend and early next week. All right, that's getting you out the door this morning. Let's take a look at our more deeper dive forecast. We start with our weather headlines. And yes, we got a slight warming trend going into the week. We've got the typical summer heat this week, really even going into the weekend, but I do expect hot, dry, and of course those afternoon winds will continue that trend where we see the winds calm down overnight. They pick back up here in the afternoon hours. We do have a slight dip in our temperatures this weekend and especially going into next week. And we take a look at that satellite image here. This is actually from yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening. We began to see a little bit more activity throughout the day, especially in the afternoon yesterday. So you can kind of see that hot spot coming in from the park fire yesterday. Now overnight, it was still fairly active. And even this morning, even though it's not burning quite as hot in that same spot there, it still is burning nonetheless. So there has been some of that activity overnight. But again, it has kind of relaxed a little bit here in the overnight and early morning hours. Here's a latest look at the fire perimeter. Now keep in mind, as I'm recording this, these numbers may have changed, but this just kind of gives you a basic idea, about 31%. We take you out to Mill Fire. We take you out to the Smith Fire. Really no changes here, not only since last week, but even over the weekend. We take you off towards the Hill Fire at 84% containment at this point at 7,224 acres. And of course, that should be updated. That should be 91% containment, by the way. This is still the same at about 92% contained. Now, again, I was talking about we're not seeing as much smoke being generated by the fire. So as a result, we are seeing better air quality. You know, you think about some of the deep purples that were in there indicating the lowest air quality, but now we're looking at more in the way of those kind of those reds. So yeah, still some poor air quality in some spots here, but again, it's not as widespread and it's not as poor as we've seen since last week. And again, the reason why we're just not seeing as much smoke being generated. I mean, going to the noon hour, just a little bit of haze out there, but then as the winds pick up, we see more activity here in the afternoon today. We see the wind kind of push that smoke from the added activity here from the park fire, pushing itself off to the north and northeast. But then as we go into tonight and into tomorrow, you see how the fire begins to relax a little bit. We're not seeing as much smoke being generated. But then again, same story, kind of the same situation, right? We see those the smoke kind of pick back up. And it's just going to be very isolated in spots where we're seeing some of that denser smoke. And then, of course, it kind of dissipates again as we go into tomorrow night and into Wednesday morning. So this is the pattern. Again, we've been talking about it for several weeks now, and really for the entire fire season, quite honestly. honestly. You see those winds calm down in the morning hours, but then by the afternoon, they begin to pick back up, especially in the valley, and not to mention many of the higher elevations. As we take into Tuesday morning, winds calm down. You guessed it. Those winds are picking back up again here for Tuesday afternoon. Now, we also have the humidity to take a look at here. And the humidity, we're seeing some decent recovery in the early morning hours, but it is drying out. We saw that monsoon moisture come in over the weekend, and it made things a bit more humid out there, a bit more humid than we're used to. But we're going to be back to those drier conditions. However, again, we're seeing that decent humidity recovery where the humidity goes up in the overnight and early morning hours, but then they dip back down again going into the afternoon. So when we take a look at the fire weather risk, remember we're talking about the heat, the humidity, and the winds. So we have fairly high fire danger for the north end of the valley, not to mention central Siskiyou County, and kind of that moderate to high range here for Modoc County and into Lassen County as well. Going into your Tuesday, I am noticing we're seeing a slight drop in that fire danger, but still hot and dry with that high fire danger in many spots. Now, the winds are certainly something. This should say Tuesday, by the way. So just kind of forget what that says here, and it should say Tuesday, but you get the idea here. Those winds are expected to be a little bit more elevated for some of those higher elevations going into tomorrow. All right, so here's what we're looking at with the satellite image here. What you'll notice here is all of this moisture here. That's the monsoon moisture, at least part of that monsoon moisture was over us this weekend, which is why extreme eastern portions of California on Saturday did see those thunderstorms, which, by the way, we dodged a bullet with what was in the forecast here from the potential for thunderstorms here. Yes, we saw some lightning strikes in extreme eastern California. There were also some severe thunderstorms and not to mention some flooding concerns and issues. But again, it was mainly way off to the east. We didn't see it make its way into Siskiyou County or Trinity County. And we just didn't see as many lightning strikes as we were expecting, quite honestly, as we were approaching the weekend. So that was good. But that, again, was due to the monsoon moisture that was expected to come on in. And it did, and it was more muggy out there than we're used to. But that monsoon moisture has shifted back down to where it typically is, and that's over the desert southwest. Now, we look at the big picture here, kind of zooming it out. We do have some tropical activity here down to the south. Some of that activity, the clouds associated with that, will have an impact on us this week. All right, so let's take a look at Futurecast. Now, really the main area where we're seeing most of the clouds and the fog, of course, is along the coast. It's going to have a hard time burning off here throughout this afternoon. It looks like some high clouds kind of filtering through tomorrow. What I do expect to see, yeah, I mean, looks like maybe a little bit of clearing for parts of the coast here as we go into Tuesday afternoon. But then, of course, that comes back Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. So there you can see that tropical activity here down to the south here. We're also still seeing some clouds just kind of hovering around the coast here, but overall the monsoon moisture itself and all that tropical moisture stays down to our south and east, and we don't anticipate any of that to really work its way up into our region, which means no thunderstorms, even for the higher elevations for the long range here. Now, again, we're talking about another heat wave. It's mainly going to be here through the middle of this week. That's the peak of it. Then what's going to start to happen toward the end of the week, we're going to start to see that ridge of high pressure begin to break down a little bit and also move down to the south and east. That'll be the case here going into this weekend, and not to mention even going into next week. So what that means is our temperatures are going to drop back down, maybe even below normal for this time of the year. When we look at the 10-day trend for Redding, yeah, you'll see that. We see that little spike here on Wednesday. They kind of level out just a little over 100 degrees here through the weekend, and then there's that dip just slightly below normal here by early to even the middle of next week. So your wave heights, well, of course, they're fairly low here along the immediate coast especially, but you can see they are beginning to increase a bit here as we go into your Tuesday. But overall, we look at that marine forecast. You've got the winds from the northwest at about 5 to 10 knots. No advisories in the forecast, but again, keep in mind there will be that dense fog in some areas just off the coast here. There you can see your Trinity County neighborhood forecast. So temperatures in the upper 90s to right around 100 degrees here for many locations here. There you can see about 93 for High and Palm, Ruth about 92, and Burnt Ranch about 98. We take out your North Coast neighborhood forecast for temperatures there in the mid 60s. I've got those temperatures around 64 in Fortuna, 67 for Blue Lake, 90 degrees out in Garberville. Let's take you out to the north, and you see about 69 for Smith River, 81 for Gas Key. There's Hoopa, about 93 and 92 degrees for Orleans. And your Siskiyou County neighborhood forecast. Temperatures there today will be in the low 90s, although places like Happy Camp, even Hornbrook, about 100 degrees. But there's your 7-day outlook for Mount Shasta, basically low to mid 90s for the next 7 days. I mean, we're just not seeing much change. Yes, we're seeing some ups and downs a little bit, but they're very minor. So you can take a look at your Modoc County neighborhood forecast, mainly in the low 90s. Some spots getting close to those mid 90s today, about 94, but there's those low to mid 90s even for Modoc County. And the Eastern Mountains, you're looking at about 95 out in Susanville, 91 degrees for Shingletown. Temperatures mid to upper 90s for your daytime highs looking at the next 7 days. And your Valley neighborhood forecast, temperatures in the upper 90s to about 100 degrees here, 99 Pasquinta, 99 for Hamilton City and Chico, about 101 degrees. As we take you up to the north, look for a high of about 101 for Cottonwood as well as Redding. And there you can see Lake at a high of about 100 degrees. All right, so we take a look at your 7-day outlook for Redding. And those temperatures, again, just kind of slowly creeping upwards over the next few days, peaking on Wednesday before we see another dip in our temperatures, very slight dip toward the end of the week, and not to mention this weekend.
At Wind River Resort and Casino, we like to celebrate life's little moments. Oh, and the big ones too, because around here, when you're completely in the moment, that's when the magic happens. Come in and find your moment at Wind River Resort and Casino.